I had finally done it. At 32, I purchased my first home after years of saving every penny from my marketing manager job. The house keys felt heavy in my palm, a weight of accomplishment and independence. I decided to keep it secret, planning a surprise housewarming to show my family what their daughter had achieved on her own. Little did I know this happy milestone would reveal uncomfortable truths about my family dynamics. Trước khi bắt đầu câu chuyện, hãy cho tôi biết bạn đang xem từ đâu và nhấn like, subscribe nếu bạn từng bị gia đình lợi dụng lòng tốt của mình. Câu chuyện của tôi sẽ cho bạn thấy tầm quan trọng của việc đặt ranh giới. Family has always been a complicated concept for me. Growing up in a traditional American household in suburban Chicago, my parents constantly compared me to my younger sister, Amy. While I pursued my marketing career with fierce independence, Amy followed the more traditional path they approved of getting married young and starting a family quickly. My parents adored Amy, her husband Scott, and their 3 children under 7. Their wedding photos dominated the living room walls. My college graduation picture sat alone on a small side table. Despite this imbalance, I maintained a close relationship with my family, visiting for Sunday dinners and holidays, listening to stories about my nieces and nephew, while my own achievements received passing acknowledgement. This dynamic never changed my love for them, but it did shape my determination to forge my own path. After college, I moved into a modest apartment, refused financial help from my parents, and meticulously budgeted every dollar. For 8 years, I put aside 30% of each paycheck into my house fund, foregoing vacations and designer clothes that my coworkers indulged in. Buying a home represented more than shelter to me. It symbolized validation that my choices, though different from family expectations, were worthy. It meant creating a space entirely mine, decorated to my taste without compromise. Most importantly, it represented freedom from constantly proving myself. The house hunting process tested my patience over 7 months. I toured 36 properties, each one either beyond my budget or requiring extensive renovations. My realtor, Linda, suggested looking in neighborhoods further from the city center where prices were more reasonable. This meant a longer commute, but the trade-off seemed worthwhile when I found it a charming 2-story with 4 bedrooms, a spacious yard, and an open-concept living area, perfect for entertaining. During the bidding process, I nearly lost hope when another buyer offered $8,000 above asking price. I stretched my budget to the absolute limit, writing a personal letter to the sellers about how much their house meant to me. When Linda called with the good news that my offer had been accepted, I screamed so loudly my neighbor knocked to check if everything was okay. Throughout this emotional roller coaster, I maintained my secret. When my mother asked about my apartment lease renewal, I deflected with vague comments about weighing my options. When my father suggested I should start thinking about real estate investment, I nodded non-committally. The thought of revealing my achievement at the perfect moment kept me going through the stressful closing process. The day I received my keys, I wandered through empty rooms, imagining the future I would build there. The master bedroom would become my sanctuary with the reading nook I always dreamed of. The second bedroom would serve as my home office. The other 2 bedrooms would accommodate guests, and perhaps someday a family of my own. The backyard needed landscaping work, but I envisioned summer barbecues and a small vegetable garden. Planning the surprise housewarming consumed my evenings after work. I purchased essential furniture, basic living room pieces, a dining table, and my bedroom set. I painted the walls in soothing blues and greens, hung artwork I had collected over years, and arranged family photos, including ones of Amy and her kids, throughout the house. For the reveal party, I ordered catering from my parents' favorite restaurant, selected wines that my father would appreciate, and even bought special juice boxes for the kids. I created digital invitations with my new address, scheduling the event for 2 weeks away, giving myself time to settle in and make everything perfect. The evening before I planned to send the invitations, my phone rang. Seeing my mother calling unusually late sent a ripple of concern through me. Her voice sounded strained as she asked if I could come over tomorrow evening for an important family discussion. When I pressed for details, she said cryptically, "We need to talk about the future of our family. Everyone will be there." Sleep eluded me that night. Had someone fallen ill? Were my parents having financial troubles? The worried crease in my forehead deepened as I speculated about what could be so urgent. Little did I know, this family meeting would transform my homeownership joy into an unexpected battle. The following evening, I arrived at my parents' house to find everyone already gathered in the living room. My father sat stiffly in his recliner, while my mother perched on the edge of the sofa, hands clasped tightly in her lap. Amy and Scott occupied the love seat, their children surprisingly absent. The atmosphere felt heavy with unspoken tension. After minimal small talk, my father cleared his throat. "Bianca, we need to discuss something important. Amy and Scott are going through a difficult time." I glanced at my sister, noticing her puffy eyes and the way Scott stared at the carpet. My mother jumped in, explaining that Scott had lost his job 3 months ago when his company downsized. They had been surviving on savings, but their landlord had recently raised their rent significantly. "Scott has been applying everywhere," my mother continued, "but the job market is tough right now. With 3 little ones, they cannot afford their apartment anymore." An uncomfortable silence followed before my father spoke again. "As family, we need to support each other through hard times." He looked pointedly at me. "Your sister has 3 children to worry about. You have a good job, no dependents, and your situation is stable." The implication hung in the air. I waited, sensing there was more to this conversation than simple awareness of their struggle. "We thought since you rent that 1-bedroom apartment, perhaps you could look into getting a larger place," my mother finally suggested. "Somewhere Amy and her family could stay with you temporarily." Temporarily. The word landed hollow in the room. I blinked, processing the request. My 2-bedroom apartment barely accommodated me in my home office setup. The idea of squeezing in 5 more people seemed physically impossible, not to mention the financial strain of upsizing my rental. "I appreciate wanting to help, but I cannot afford a bigger apartment," I explained carefully. "My current place already stretches my budget." Amy looked up, tears streaming down her face. "We have nowhere else to go, Bianca. The kids' school year just started. Moving to a different district would devastate them." My parents nodded in agreement, clearly having discussed this plan extensively before involving me. "Your sister would do the same for you," my mother added. "Family takes care of family. You always talk about wanting to be closer to the kids. This would give you that opportunity." The pressure mounted as Scott detailed their desperate search for affordable housing, the rising costs in our area, and how they had exhausted options with their friends. Each word felt like another brick being stacked on my shoulders. "You would only need to help until Scott finds work," my father assured me. "A month or 2 at most." Something in his tone triggered my suspicion. Then came the revelation that shattered any illusion of choice in this matter. "I already told the kids they would be staying with their Aunt Bianca," Amy admitted. "They are so excited to have sleepovers with you." My father nodded firmly. "We promised Amy you would help. You have always been independent, but sometimes family needs come first." The realization hit me with stunning force. They had made this decision without me. My input was a mere formality. The expectation of sacrifice rested squarely on my shoulders, not because I was capable, but because I was single without children of my own. I tried explaining my financial limitations again, outlining my budget and the impossibility of affording a larger apartment on short notice, but my words seemed to bounce off an invisible wall of determination. My mother sighed heavily, disappointment etched across her face. "This is about priorities, Bianca," she said. "What matters more? Your extra spending money for restaurants and shopping, or your nieces and nephew having stability?" Her mischaracterization of my careful budgeting as frivolous spending stung deeply. Years of saving, of denying myself, small luxuries reduced to selfishness in their eyes. Amy wiped her tears and looked at me with sudden interest. "What about that house you mentioned looking at?" "The one in Oak Ridge." My breath caught. I had casually mentioned considering homeownership during a family dinner months ago, but nothing specific about neighborhoods or actually purchasing property. How did she know about Oak Ridge, where my new home was located? Before I could respond, my father leaned forward. "Your cousin Darren mentioned seeing you with a realtor in that area. Are you house hunting without telling us?" The accusation in his voice was unmistakable. Suddenly, I felt cornered, trapped between my joyful secret and their expectations. My mind raced through possible responses, each seeming inadequate against the pressure mounting in the room. The moment stretched into uncomfortable silence as everyone stared at me, waiting. My secret trembled on the edge of revelation. With no graceful exit, I finally admitted the truth. Actually, I bought a house. I completed the purchase last week. The transformation in the room was instant. Shock registered on every face, quickly followed by various reactions. My mother gasped in surprise. My father frowned slightly, and Amy exchanged a meaningful glance with Scott. "You bought a house." My mother stood up. "Without telling us. Why would you keep something so important secret?" I wanted to surprise everyone, I explained, feeling my carefully planned reveal crumbling. "I was going to invite you all to a housewarming in 2 weeks." For a moment, genuine happiness flickered across their faces. My father nodded approvingly, and my mother clasped her hands together. But this brief celebration quickly morphed into something else entirely. "Well, this is perfect timing," my mother exclaimed. "How many bedrooms does it have?" "4, but I plan to use one as my office, and another as a guest room," I replied, already sensing where this conversation was heading. My father slapped his knee. "This solves everything. Amy and Scott can take 2 bedrooms, one for them and one for the girls. Their son can stay in the guest room. You will still have your office space." They started discussing my house as if it were community property. Amy perked up immediately, her tears forgotten as she pulled out her phone. "Can I see pictures? Where exactly is it? How big is the kitchen?" She fired questions rapidly while Scott nodded along, relief washing over his features. The shock rendered me temporarily speechless. In the span of 5 minutes, my achievement had been coopted. My sanctuary was being mentally divided and allocated without my consent. The culmination of 8 years of saving and sacrifice was being treated as a fortuitous solution to someone else's problems. "Mom, Dad, wait," I finally managed. "I just bought this house. I have not even fully moved in yet. I cannot possibly have 5 additional people move in immediately." But they barely heard me. My mother was already discussing how they could help Amy pack over the weekend. My father mentioned a truck he could borrow from work for moving furniture. "Bianca, this is truly a blessing," my mother said. "God works in mysterious ways. Just when your sister needed help most, you have this big new house with plenty of room." My protests grew stronger but were dismissed with platitudes about family duty and sharing blessings. The conversation barreled forward with discussions about school bus routes from my address and whether Scott could use my home office for his job search during daytime hours. As everyone talked over me, I excused myself to use the bathroom, needing a moment to process what was happening. Walking down the hallway, I overheard Scott speaking to Amy in the kitchen, where they had gone to get water. "I told you it would work out," he said quietly. "Your parents always come through." Amy replied in a hushed tone. "Do you think she suspects we already knew? Darren showed me the online listing weeks ago when he saw her touring it." My blood ran cold as Scott chuckled. "No way. Besides, your dad already talked to her neighbors. The older couple next door seems nice. They mentioned they were looking forward to having children around again. Said Bianca told them her family would visit often." I stood frozen, piecing together the disturbing reality. My sister had not only known about my house, but my entire family had been planning this arrangement behind my back, going so far as to speak with my new neighbors before I had even announced my purchase. Amy continued, "How long do you think we will need to stay? The rent money we are saving will help us catch up on credit card debt." "Hopefully at least through next summer," Scott replied. "Your parents think Bianca will eventually get used to having us there. Once we are settled, it will be harder for her to ask us to leave." The room spun around me as I heard Amy say, "Mom thinks we should take the master bedroom since we are 2 people. Bianca can take one of the smaller rooms." That was the moment something broke inside me. The lifetime pattern of putting my sister first, of my needs being secondary, of sacrifices expected without acknowledgement, crystallized with perfect clarity. This was not family helping family. This was exploitation dressed as obligation. I walked back into the living room, a strange calm settling over me. Everyone looked up, still chatting excitedly about their plans for my house. "I know what you are all planning," I said, my voice steady, despite the storm raging within. I heard your conversation in the kitchen. You have been tracking my home purchase for weeks. You have talked to my neighbors. You plan to move in indefinitely and take over my master bedroom." The room fell silent. Guilty expressions confirmed everything. The uncomfortable silence stretched as my words hung in the air. My mother recovered first, her expression shifting from shock to wounded innocence. "Bianca, you misunderstood what you heard," she insisted. "We were just discussing possibilities." My father cleared his throat. "There is no need for dramatics. We are simply trying to help Amy during a difficult time." Amy shot Scott an accusatory look before addressing me. "I only knew about the house because Darren mentioned it casually. It was not some conspiracy. Their denials only fueled my determination. Every instinct told me to back down, to accommodate, as I always had to keep peace in the family. But standing there watching them attempt to gaslight me about a conversation I had clearly heard, something fundamental changed within me. "I have the texts from Darren," Scott interjected, pulling out his phone. "We were just curious about where you were moving. Any family would be." My mother dabbed at her eyes with a tissue. "I cannot believe you would accuse us of going behind your back. After everything we have done for you." The guilt tactic that had worked so reliably throughout my life suddenly lost its power. I saw it clearly for what it was: manipulation disguised as parental concern. "What exactly have you done for me?" I asked quietly. "Since college, I have supported myself entirely. I saved for this house, without help from anyone." My father stood up, anger flashing across his face. "We raised you, we paid for your education, and this is how you repay us, by refusing to help your sister when she needs it." Amy started crying again, right on cue. "You have always been selfish, Bianca. You have this big, empty house all to yourself, while my children might end up homeless." I looked at my sister, really looked at her, and saw the pattern that had defined our relationship. Her problems always became my responsibility. Her choices never seemed to have consequences because someone, usually me, would step in to fix things. "You are not going to be homeless," I said firmly. "But you are not moving into my house either." My mother gasped dramatically. "I do not recognize who you have become. My daughter would never turn her back on family." The emotional manipulation was textbook, but for the first time, I recognized it without internalizing it. This was about boundaries, not love. About respect, not rejection. "I love all of you," I said, my voice steady. "And because I love you, I will help in ways that are actually healthy. I can loan you money for a security deposit on a new apartment. I can help Scott with job connections in my network. I can watch the kids sometimes to give you breaks, but you cannot move into my house." Scott scoffed. "We do not need your charity, we need a place to stay." "What you are asking for is not temporary help," I replied. "I heard you discussing staying through next summer at minimum. You plan to take my master bedroom. You discussed how once you moved in it would be harder for me to ask you to leave. That is not family helping family, that is taking advantage." My father pointed his finger at me. "You always think you know everything. You have no idea what it is like to raise children, to have real responsibilities. Your sister needs concrete help, not your condescending offers." I took a deep breath, centering myself. "Dad, I respect that you want to protect Amy, but this is not your decision to make. This is my house that I worked incredibly hard for. My name is on the mortgage. I get to decide who lives there." Amy stood up, anger replacing her tears. "You owe this family. After everything we have done, you owe us." The entitlement in her voice clarified everything. This was not about need. It was about what they felt entitled to take from me. "I do not owe anyone the right to take over my home," I stated calmly. "I am sorry you are struggling, but moving your entire family into my new house is not the solution." My mother began sobbing in earnest. "I never thought I would see the day when my own daughter would turn her back on family. What will people think?" I found myself unmoved by the performance that once would have devastated me. "They probably will think I am setting healthy boundaries and respecting myself," I replied. "Which is exactly what I am doing. I gathered my purse and stood up. This conversation is over. I love you all, but I will not be manipulated into this arrangement. When you are ready to discuss realistic ways I can help that do not involve surrendering my home, I am here. My father blocked my path to the door. You walk out now and you will regret it. Family is everything, Bianca. I looked him directly in the eyes. Yes, family is everything, which is why healthy boundaries matter. A family that truly loves each other does not manipulate pressure or take advantage. With that, I walked past him and out the door, leaving behind the stunned silence of people unaccustomed to hearing me say no. The drive home to my new house that night was both terrifying and liberating, a beginning rather than an end. The aftermath of standing my ground was predictably difficult. For 2 weeks, my phone remained silent except for a few guilt-inducing texts from my mother. Amy blocked me on social media. My father left a voicemail stating simply that I had disappointed the entire family. Despite the emotional turmoil, I focused on settling into my home, making it truly mine, in ways both large and small. I planted flowers along the front walkway, hung wind chimes on the back porch, and arranged my books alphabetically in the built-in shelves. Each small act of ownership helped heal the wounds from my family confrontation. My colleague Jada noticed my distraction at work and invited me to dinner. Over pasta and wine, I shared the entire story, half expecting her to suggest I should have compromised. Instead, she raised her glass in a toast. To boundaries, she said, and to the courage it takes to set them. Her support opened the floodgates. I began sharing my situation with other friends, discovering many had experienced similar family dynamics. My friend Marcus revealed how his parents had pressured him to give his brother $20,000 for a business venture that failed spectacularly. My running partner Tess described being expected to cancel a vacation she had saved 2 years for because her sister wanted her to babysit during the same week. These conversations helped me see my situation as part of a broader pattern, rather than a personal failure to be appropriately selfless. I found myself building stronger connections with friends who respected my boundaries, a chosen family alongside my biological one. 3 weeks after our confrontation, my mother texted asking to meet for coffee, alone. I agreed, setting the meeting in a public cafe rather than at my house or theirs. When she arrived, her expression was subdued, lacking the dramatic flair from our last encounter. "You look well," she said, studying me across the table. "I am well," I replied simply. She stirred her coffee carefully. Amy found an apartment. The landlord agreed to a 6-month lease with a slight discount since Scott has a promising job interview next week. I nodded, waiting for more. "Your father and I helped with the security deposit," she continued. "The apartment is smaller but close to the kids' school. I am glad to hear that." I responded sincerely. "I hope the job works out for Scott." A silence stretched between us, filled with unspoken words. Finally, she sighed. "I owe you an apology," she said, the words clearly difficult for her. "We should not have presumed about your house, or talked to your neighbors. That was inappropriate." Though her apology addressed only the surface issues, not the deeper patterns of manipulation, I recognized the effort it took for her to admit any wrongdoing. "Thank you for saying that," I acknowledged. "It means a lot to me." She fidgeted with her napkin. "You have to understand, as parents, we worry about all our children. Amy has the kids, and she has always needed more help. You have always been so independent." I saw then how my competence had been used against me, how being capable had translated to being endlessly available for others' needs. With gentle firmness, I explained this perspective to my mother, watching understanding slowly dawn in her eyes. "I never thought of it that way," she admitted. "I guess we came to expect that you would always accommodate." The conversation marked the beginning of a slow reconstruction. Over the following months, I maintained clear boundaries while remaining open to rebuilding our relationship on healthier terms. I invited my parents for dinner at my house, giving them a proper tour and sharing my pride in what I had accomplished. Amy took longer to come around. Her initial anger eventually softened to grudging acceptance when Scott found a job with better pay than his previous position. 6 months after our confrontation, she texted asking if her kids could visit for a weekend. That visit became a turning point, allowing us to begin forming a relationship based on mutual respect rather than obligation. I learned that setting boundaries did not mean cutting ties. It meant creating space for authentic connection, rather than resentful compliance. By refusing to be the family safety net, I actually enabled Amy and Scott to find their own solutions and develop greater resilience. The journey taught me that love without boundaries is not truly love, but dependence. That family ties should strengthen each person rather than restrict their growth. Most importantly, I learned that my worth was not determined by my usefulness to others, but by the integrity with which I lived my own life. Today, as I sit on my back porch watching the sunset cast golden light across my garden, I feel a deep peace. My home remains my sanctuary, but one I can freely choose to share on my own terms. Family visits now bring joy rather than obligation. The painful confrontation that once seemed like a devastating rupture instead became the foundation for more authentic relationships built on mutual respect rather than expectation. What is your experience with family boundaries? Have you ever had to stand up for yourself, even when it was difficult? Share your story in the comments below. And if this resonated with you, please subscribe to hear more real-life lessons and hit that like button to help others find this message. Remember that setting boundaries is not selfish. It is necessary for genuine relationships to flourish. Thank you for listening, and may you find the courage to honor your own worth.